Tonight, the conclusion of the legend of Thunder Canyon. 9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors.
If you really want to get that big buck, you can't give up. You have to believe, you have to keep going. I'd worked for years, for decades, trying to get a chance at that buck of a lifetime, and I got the opportunity and I blew it, and I was just crushed. You wonder how long it's going to take to get our chance. Well, this time, ladies and gentlemen, it took less than 12 hours. And I get him in the scope and I'm just ready to squeeze the trigger. And he dipped off the back of the hill and he was gone. Frustration doesn't even begin to describe how I feel. I'll cross paths with that guy one more time. One more time I will. I'd worked for years, for decades, trying to get a chance at that buck of a lifetime, and I got the opportunity and I blew it, and I was just crushed. And went home that night, and it was just the most empty feeling, and walked through his old haunts, and I found that his scrape lines were active again. He had rubbed the same trees as last year, and I knew he was back. And you know, this whole time, every time I would tell the story and share the book with people and they'd read it, they'd be excited for me. I get a chance to go back and hunt, and I was excited too, but I also knew the reality of it. You know, the chances of actually seeing the same deer, the chances are astronomically low. It's like trying to find a needle in a moving needle, that is, in a never-ending haystack, in an infinite haystack, and I knew the odds were stacked against me. It's opening day, 2016. Sitting here in my spot on the scrape line, 30 Point Mountain, kind of the territorial legend of Thunder Canyon. The Thunder Canyon is up ahead of me to the north. So it's about 9:30 this morning, and I haven't seen a dang thing. I sweated my butt off getting in here, so I'm a little cold. Not cold, but just bored. It hurts my back to sit here, and it's a big woods, and so I gotta go. I gotta go find him. He's a needle in a haystack, and he's moving. I can't just sit here and wait for him to come to me. The wind is picking up out of the south, so I'm gonna loop around and hunt into the wind for the afternoon on up the creek. See if I can find him. I believed I'd have another run-in with that guy. I'd cross paths with him again. I didn't know how it would turn out, especially based on last year's experiences, but I learned from last year, and I really believed in my heart that I would cross paths with him again, and I believed too that if I did, I would be ready this time. One of the keys to being a successful still hunter and stalker, you always want to have your gun at the ready. You know, a lot of guys, they'll walk through the woods and they'll have their gun like this, doop-de-doo, or they'll have it over their shoulder, or more guys even than that, they'll wear their gun on their shoulder like this and walk through the woods. Well, what are you going to do if you're walking along and you see that big buck right now? You're going to be out of luck. So one of the key components, another key component of my hunting success, I always have the gun ready to go right here. So when I'm steeking, when I'm stalking on my tiptoes, I'm always right here. And then if I see him and he jumps up, all I got to do is bring the gun up to my eye. That's really important to always be ready, because you got to expect the unexpected. It seems like those big bucks, a lot of time, they show up when you very least expect it. So critically, and I've learned the hard way, if you're not ready, you're not going to get a good result. So you really have to always be prepared and have that gun ready to go there for a moment's notice. Well, I went the first day and I set on a scrape line. I got in at 6:30 and I set till 10 and saw nothing, not a single deer. So I decided midday I'd sneak a little further back in the woods and check another area of a scrape line, and got back in there, and sure enough, he had hit that area too. And I sat there till dark and again, didn't see anything. Well, on the way in, I had jumped a deer close to the truck and didn't think anything of it on the way in the morning, of course. On the way back to the truck at night, I was 3-4 miles back in. It took me an hour and a half to get back to the truck. And when I got back to the truck, within 100 yards of the truck, I jumped a bunch of deer. And man, it sounded like there was a really big deer in there. It sounded like a giant deer. In fact, I'd swear I could hear antlers hitting trees as the deer ran away. It almost sounded like a moose ran away. So I thought about that, and I thought, doggone it, you know, I had a whole year to plan and prepare and think about this, and I go out the first day and I get nothing but a goose egg, you know, and son of a gun, this is going to be another long, tough year. But it is what it is, and that's what I accept. That's the challenge you face up here. Went home that night and told the wife the story, and I told her, you know, I can't understand. Those deer had no reason to be right there by the truck, unless they had a reason to be there. And I got to thinking about that. I thought, well, maybe somebody's got a bait pile in there, but I didn't think that, because I try to get as far away from other people as I possibly can. If I see other people hunting an area, I go somewhere else. So I didn't think it was a bait pile. And then I thought, well, what other reason would they have to be there? Maybe there was a hot doe in there. And if there was a hot doe in there, maybe there's bucks in there. And if they were in there in the morning, they're in there at night, maybe they'd be there the next morning. I didn't know where I was going to go the next morning. I hunt, you know, like I say, 1,000 square miles. I've got hundreds of spots I could go. And so I was going to go a different place, but on the way in there, I was just thinking about it, and it was eating at me. Why are they there? I got to find out. So I decided I would sneak back in there, and I'd wait till midday, and then I'd try to go in the area where I jumped them from and just see maybe why they're in there. And so I was thinking maybe they're still in there for the morning. So I got in early. I got to the parking spot about 6:30. I knew it was a drippy morning. It was calm. There was a full moon in front of me, clear, and it'd be getting light behind me. And I knew that if they were still in there, I knew they would hear me approaching and trying to get to the spot. I was going to go to a spot where they had a scrape line, you know, maybe 3/4 of a mile back in off the road. And I knew they'd hear me getting in no matter what. And so I knew the only way that I'd have a chance is on the way in, if they heard me, if they would think it was a deer. And so I instantly, well, when I got out of the truck, I eased the door shut real quiet. And from the first step, I was on my tiptoes. And I did the tiptoe walk. I'd go about 70 yards at a time, and I would stop and rest, and another 70 yards. My heels never touched the ground on the way in. Finally, I got about 3/4 of a mile into where I wanted to be, and it was still dark, you know. It's 20 to 7 at this point, and I was going to sit down underneath a big spruce tree in this little clearing in the maples, the base of the mountain. And I went to you know, I cleared the leaves at the ground for a place to sit, and there was a couple branches hanging down. I tried to clear those so I'd have, you know, room to maneuver. And I broke one and crack, super loud, and I broke another one, crack. I thought, boy, this will never do too much noise. And then I thought, but maybe, you know, maybe the sound I've made, maybe to another deer, maybe that'll sound like a big buck making a racket. Maybe if I quit now and just ease in and shut up, maybe I'll have a chance. I snuck 10 yards further to the west and found a big maple tree and cleared the leaves at the base and sat right down at the base of the tree, Indian style. It's about 5:45, 6:45 now. And so I'm sitting there and it's dark and the moon is in front of me, the super moon waning, and it's just dawn is just starting to fill the sky behind me. And I'm listening and I can hear drips in the distance, 100 yards away. And every time I'd hear a drip, my ears would kind of radar and focus on the drip. And I heard an owl hoot in the distance and I thought, well, that's a neat thing to hear. And I heard a duck quack in the distance, something you don't normally hear during deer season. Well, that's a neat thing to hear. Now it's getting on 7 o'clock and pretty soon to the southwest of me, I hear what sounds like birch bark rustling down there. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I listen. Pretty soon I hear, sounds like an animal moving 150 yards southwest. And for sure, I heard a deer coming. I got my gun ready. I can hear him coming closer. And so I get ready. I'm sitting on my butt. My gun is in my hands. And he's coming. And I can hear him coming. And he sounds like a big buck would sound. At 50 yards, I can see movement in the maples. And I get the gun ready. And at 40 yards, I can see the shape of a deer, and it's for sure a deer, a single deer. Here he comes, he's quartering towards me. And at 35 yards, he goes through an opening, and I can see the shape, it's a big deer. And between the morning dawn and the super moon, I could see, and it looked like a ghost, it looked like a giant buck. At 25 yards, I look with my naked eye, and I can see what looks like an inconceivably large buck, an impossibly large buck. I can't even believe my eyes. I blink and I look again and I see the same thing. And he got in the open about 20 yards and I brought my scope up. By this time, he's almost to the right of me, so I can't have the gun well seated in the shoulder. I've got to kind of put it behind me and lean over this way. And so I do that and I lean into the scope and I look. And again, I see inconceivably large buck, an impossibly large buck. The biggest buck I ever saw in my life. And I looked and it looked like a giant buck. And I didn't take a second even to look, it just looked huge. And I put the crosshairs on his shoulder. Boom, I shoot. And the muzzle flashes orange and there's smoke. And he tipped over backwards, just fell right over dead, didn't even twitch. My heart's pounding and I wait and his nose was to the sky and his rack fell back. I mean, I couldn't believe that it was really what I thought I saw. I didn't know. I'm thinking, well, maybe it was a nice 8-point. I was looking through the scope trying to see his rack, and I think he's a big guy. I look through the scope and, man, that's a big deer, and I see the nose sticking up, and it almost looks like there's branches sticking up there. I can't believe it, but I think I got the legend of Thunder Canyon. We're gonna walk over there now for the first time. Big deer, big wide rack. It's the legend of Thunder Canyon. It's him. It's him, look at that. I can't even believe it. That is him. He's almost 2 feet wide. Legend of Thunder Canyon. And there he goes. Absolute miracle. The morning sun is rising. 20 yards. I mean, the spread on this thing has got to be 22, 24 inches. It's the biggest, widest buck I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely gigantic. Oh my God. The legend of Thunder Canyon. Biggest buck I ever saw. That is just enormous. Oh boy. Wow. It's all over. It's all over. That is the biggest buck that I've ever seen in the UP. Ever. Rest in peace, old fella. Rest in peace. Somebody was gonna get you, and I'm gonna respect you. I can't believe it. It's gotta be 22 inches wide. That's the biggest, beautiful buck I've ever seen in my life. I can't even believe it. It's a Legend of Thunder Canyon. It's been years in the making, and finally did it. Rest in peace, old friend. Legend of Thunder Canyon. It's been a 4-year hunt. It's been an odyssey. It's been the greatest hunt of my career. Maybe the greatest hunt I've ever heard of. Chasing him for 4 years, hunting the old-fashioned way. I don't hunt with a bait pile or a blind. I hunt, I stalk, and I track, and I sneak, and do it the old-fashioned way. I don't have a quad, and I do it all on foot. And this is what can happen if you really believe. If you really believe, and if you focus in, and you really believe day after day, believe enough to get yourself out of bed at 4:04 in the morning and get out there in the dark and spend a lot of days suffering and freezing your butt off and seeing nothing. But if you really believe, this is the kind of thing that can happen. Legend of Thunder Canyon, he's a big buck. The biggest buck I ever saw. I talked to some old timers and they agreed he may be the biggest buck they ever saw too. Some numbers on him, we measured him up. Inside spread is 23¼ inches. The outside spread is a little over 25 inches. And these main beams measure a little better than 24 inches. And our G2s here are 9 inches and the G3s are 7 inches. I don't have a score on him. He probably will total somewhere 130, 140 inches, but it's really not about that. Anybody out there that hunts the old-fashioned way, the way that I do, they know that, it's the quality of the hunt that matters. And whether you come home with a little basket rack 6-point or an 8-point, if you do it the old-fashioned way and you really earn it, it's something to be really proud of, and something to a great honor to be able to harvest the animal, and a great honor to be able to share the food with your friends and family, and share the story with all the other hunters out there. I missed this guy twice in 2015, 2 days in a row, and it's hard to describe the feeling of frustration and despair after you work. I've been working for 20 years, 30 years to get a guy like this, and to have that chance and to blow it not once but 2 days in a row, it's indescribable, the feeling of frustration and disappointment. And I lived with that for a year, and I guess as a form of therapy and also a way to share the story, because it was such a long 3-year saga. I couldn't share it in the space of a phone conversation. So I wrote a book about him, and it was good therapy. And I spent the whole year losing sleep and thinking about him and training to be able to hunt the mountains where he lives and hunt the canyons where he lives and stalk and sneak and tippy-toe my way in. hopefully the lessons that he taught me, hopefully I can share with the people, and hopefully others can learn from my mistakes and my successes, and hopefully people can learn and go out and have an adventure like this of their own and make their own dreams come true. If you really believe and you really work and put every ounce of your heart and soul into it, it can happen. And so I'm just honored to be able to share this and be able to be in this moment. I feel like the luckiest guy in the world, and I've said that for a long time, and I really believe it. I can sit here and talk all day about, you know, how I did everything right and perfect and what a great hunt it was. But the fact of the matter is he was a moving needle in an infinite haystack, and you know, to actually be in the right place at the right time, to have him come by me 20 yards away, I'd say I'm a pretty lucky guy. And I'll try to tell myself I made my own luck, but I was darn lucky, and I just feel real thankful and real fortunate. And you know, this time it was the big buck, the biggest buck of my lifetime. A lot of other times it was other bucks that weren't anything special on a grand scale, but they were special to me. And you know, anytime, like I say, anytime that you hunt the old-fashioned way and go about it the way that I do, and play on a fair playing field with the deer, anything that you can harvest, whether it's just the memory of seeing them or finding some other treasure along the way, a shed antler or whatever, or when you actually get one, it's always a great hunt, and it's always something to remember and something exciting.
Stop in at 906outdoors.com, where you can watch any of our past shows and see what's coming up next. You'll also find the UP Fishing Report, weather, shopping, and more. Be sure to join 906 Outdoors on Facebook to see where we've been and where we're going. Thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you next week right here on 906 Outdoors.